Welcome, welcome, welcome to Beyond a Boardroom Business. I'm your host, Coach Stephanie, and we are in for an amazing episode. So make sure you get your friends, your family, anyone that you know that is struggling or has a challenge with communicating. This is definitely the episode for you. I have this amazing woman here, and she's just going to help ease all the pain that you have when it comes to communicating and networking, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, let me just bring on Mrs. Kerrie Muhammad. How are you this evening?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, Coach Stephanie. I'm just humbled to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. You were referred to be here, and I'm definitely so grateful after I read your bio. So without further ado, can you tell us who is Kerrie Muhammad?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. So I am Kerrie Muhammad. I am a first generation in this country, a child of two immigrant parents that came to this country from the island of Jamaica, and they made their own way. My mom is an entrepreneur, and so is my father. I focus more on my mom when I talk about my entrepreneurship spark because my mom is actually in service. So she is in the medical profession. And for as long as I've known her, she's been serving her patients. So I am a person that from a young age was basically sparked. The spark of entrepreneurship was basically put into me, but I didn't know it. I'm a person that when I went to college, I thought to myself, I want to be an entrepreneur, but the pathway at that time was to leave school, work first, and then come back into get your master's. And that wasn't a path that I wanted to take because I know that my momentum is get it done now while you can, and then come revisit things later. So I decided to go to law school, and I spent almost 20 wonderful years being a prosecutor in the state of New York, serving the residents of that county in that capacity. And in 2021 or so, I made the decision that it was time for me to do for self and step out on faith and open my own business because at that point it was a dream deferred at this time.
Wow, that is amazing. So, what made you interested in pursuing law?
Sure. So when I was in college, I started reading a true crime series, and it was actually about a detective who was investigating different types of crimes, and it was told from his perspective. You learned about the protagonists, which were the defendants, the criminals at that time. And what I really gleaned from that whole experience was just how he poured his everything into a case. And I knew that in order to be someone that was going to be successful in any particular type of career, it had to be one that I was willing to dedicate everything to. And so that was really where the passion for law and criminal law actually was born.
Wow. Now, I myself, I was a court reporter because I too loved just being able to dissect something and able to give it my all. Now, I would have been an attorney, but because I got married at a young age and had children, I didn't want to get too stressed out. I wanted to raise my children. So therefore, I became a court reporter. But was there anything that attracted you when you were younger towards the law? Like, for example, I used to love watching People's Court when I was growing up. Was there anything or anyone that helped jar that, spark for you?
Before the college,
Yes.
it's funny. And again, it might be a little bit wayward, but honestly, watching people do talk shows like Oprah at that time, and just seeing the way that she carried herself and how well she communicated, and the fact that my parents kind of always told me like, "Girl, you argue so much, you should be a lawyer." And it was just kind of like ingrained basically in my head, and I guess I didn't know it. So I guess at that point, it just became a choice of which type of law would you do. And so the criminal aspect, I think that from a young age, I've just always been a person that's been I'm an empath, I think. And so I feel, and I feel for others. And it's not necessarily that anything has ever happened to myself or my family in life that has ever sparked that, but I think it's just the nature of me and what my parents have instilled in me, that I want to serve people. And so law is service, it's advocacy, but to do the type of work that I did, I had to be completely immersed and wanting to see justice, for the people that were impacted. So maybe it wasn't that a spark for criminal law from the beginning, but it was definitely a spark for service and advocacy from the beginning.
Wow, that's huge. I really commend you for that. Did you have mentors outside of your parents while you were growing up?
For sure. Through my mother and through my father. So I'll give you two examples actually. My dad, when I was around 18 or so, he introduced me. He said, "Look, you need to go get a job. And I know someone that would give you a job and you have no skills. So why don't you go over here and work at Baskin Robbins?" And so I said, "Okay, fine. I'll go work at Baskin Robbins. It's right down the street from my house." But what that experience showed me was, number one, he too was an immigrant from Jamaica that had literally built this business in a neighborhood that was not where he was the majority. And he built a successful business from scratch. And it was like a central location in town. Like there was only like 2 ice cream shops, and he was the ice cream shop that I went to, that people flocked to. And to just listen to him and to hear his story about his comeuppance and what he had to do to even get to that point, that was inspiring. As far as mentors, one person that influenced me, and this was when I was older, so even after I got out of college and in college, I met one person that was a speaker at our school. She came and she said that she was Black, and she was less than 30 years old. And she talked about being a businesswoman and earning her first million before she was 30 years old.
Wow.
And the million part wasn't necessarily the attractive part, although it is alluring. But what was so awesome about her was that she was just so down to earth, so just reasonable, and so made everything seem so attainable.
Wow.
And then I would say the third influential mentor that I had would have been an internship that I did with a judge. And she too was Black, and she was on the civil bench, having left the criminal bench. And she taught me, she said, "Look, Kerrie," and this is, I take this to this day, I say this to people. She says, "Kerrie, do what you love and the money will come."
That's it.
And that's literally how I've lived my life.
Wow. That's beautiful. It's so humbling to know that you were able to have the mentorship and just be in the right environments to help mold and shape you into the positive, powerful person that you are today. So let me ask you though, while you were representing people, did you experience racism? And how did you handle it?
All the time. I mean, but at that time, I was young. It didn't really faze me because I had an expectation. I worked in a county that was predominantly white. I was one of the few attorneys of color in that entire jurisdiction. And so it wasn't really a surprise to me. I've had a judge call me by the name of the defendant throughout the course of an entire trial. I've had a judge, after making an argument in front of them on a Friday, I walk in on a murder case, and they said to me, "Oh, I didn't even know that you were on this case," because I was working with a partner who was above me and who was also white. But that's what they said to me as soon as they came on the bench that Monday morning. And I was like, I just made a serious argument in front of you on Friday, and it just went over your head, I guess, that I was even here. And we've had people mistake us for not attorneys. I mean, so it runs the gamut, but it never fazed me because I never walked in with the expectation like that wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean?
That's good. Yeah. Wow, that's good. That's really inspirational. Do you have any positive tips for people who are pursuing that industry?
Absolutely. You know, just to give you a little backstory, right? When I was coming up in law school, I had friends that were of color. And when I told them what it was that I wanted to do, because I went to a school that wasn't based for civil service, it was more based for business. And when I told them what I wanted to do, they looked at me skeptically and they said, "Well, why do you want to do that? Like, you're black." And at that time, which is still the case, the major parts of the criminal justice system were filled with people that look just like me. And so, I battled that even before choosing the career path. And to help me choose that career path, I just had to do some research. And it became apparent to me that nothing has changed even to this day. But when you go into any position, right, we aren't necessarily there. And so, how do we break open and make pathways for people and pioneer pathways for people other than to be there and to endure these situations? So, yes, maybe being a prosecutor may not be the most popular choice for a person like myself, but it was the most popular choice for me because in my research and later on it folded out in life, in actual reality, I knew that the majority of the time people are going to commit crimes against people that they know. And sometimes they're going to commit crimes against people that look mostly like them, not people that don't. And so even though there might be a defendant that might be brown on one side, fighting for their liberty, on the other side, a lot of times is a victim that looks just like the defendant and looks just like me. So I am fighting for people that, are underserved and brown and black, even though on the other side, sometimes there might be someone that looks like me on the other side. So my advice to people is don't let a difficulty factor, or naysayers or people that may not be for you, impact your decision on a career path. Because if that's what your purpose is and that's what you're driven to do and that's what you feel, motivated and inspired to do, then do it justly and do it for the right reasons. And we need representation in all facets of life. And so all of what I studied and all of the research that I did to help me, narrow down my career path proved true. And I'm a testament to being able to say that I was happy to be on the other side of that table to help the victims that relied upon me and that trusted me simply because they felt that I could empathize with them because I was like them.
Yes, I love it. And yes, you are so necessary. Definitely. Thank you for standing in your calling and just doing what you felt that you were meant to do. And you definitely have proven that you are worthy of it because you have a beautiful reputation and you're just an amazing woman. So I commend you on that. So let's talk about what are you doing now? What are you into?
So right now, I am an entrepreneur and I'm happy to be slogging through entrepreneurship for the last 3 years. After I left civil service, I knew that there was something that I had to do, but it had to be service based, but I didn't want it to be trauma based.
Okay.
Most of the people that I would deal with in my previous work were either going through trauma, having experienced trauma, trying to recover from trauma. And I still wanted to be of help and of service to people, but I didn't want to be of service to them when they're at their lowest anymore. I wanted to be of service when it was hopeful and when there was a chance for them to fly. So in the last couple of years that I was with the office, I was on the hiring committee. And I was the top of the funnel, the screening part. And what I started to notice was that there were lots of young applicants that they were great on paper, but when you met them, they just couldn't deliver their qualifications and their value and communicate that effectively. And so I thought to myself, this is a gap that I can help to fill, between interview performance and, resumes, marrying them together and actually making that person become an embodiment of what's on their resume page. And so Born was Command the Interview out of that need that I saw.
Wow. Command the Interview. So that's the business. That's the name of your business.
Yes, ma'am.
Man the Interview. Now, what made you come up with that title?
In my research and in my own viewing of what I was seeing, because most of the interviews that I conducted were virtual,
Yes.
I could see that there was an anxiety level there. I could see that there was a disconnect between what people believed that they brought to the table versus what they, could communicate that they could bring to the table. And so I thought, well, they really have to take a command, they have to take control of this medium, which is an interview, which is really the only way that you're going to even get into any career. And so Command the Interview was born of me trying to help empower people to take ownership and really overcome whatever anxiety or trepidation that they may have with this, what is really just a conversation, an interview.
Wow. So what's the process to go through to help inspire them to become better with their communication skills?
So at the end of the day, it is a self-esteem issue. It is that thing because most people, first of all, Brian Tracy is quoted as saying that, communication takes up fully 85% and will be that 85% of how you become successful either in business or in life. And it's so true. And so the process is really to build them up as people by making them be a little bit introspective. Like, let's write down and talk about some of the things that you've already accomplished because you don't even realize that you've accomplished them. Like, you've gone through life, you put things on your resume, but you're not really taking stock of what it took for you to even overcome what it was or have that accomplishment. So let's list out what some of these accomplishments are that, give you those qualifications and that value that you can bring to an employer. And then when you see that, and when you can hear yourself, envision yourself talking about it, then we start talking about it. Because the one thing that humans by nature, many of us, we don't talk about ourselves. We don't know how to effectively talk about ourselves. That's all an interview is it's communication, but about a difficult subject, which is you.
That is so true. Wow. So how long does it take on average to help someone see who they are and learn to understand their value?
For sure, it definitely takes at least 4 meetings because you have to learn them and learn what they think their deficits are and what you can see perhaps are their deficits, and then they have to trust you to be able to even take in the information that you're trying to give them. Then you have to show them, hey, listen, in order for you to get better at this, you actually have to go into it. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to actually do it. So that's another thing is that people that I see, especially the younger people, they're not making the connection of that you have to practice in the manner in which you want to play.
Yes.
So practice, and an interview is verbal. So you can't just write down your answers. You can't envision yourself saying it. You actually have to say it to someone or something and get it out and get out the nerves of that. You know what I mean? And get out the level of uncomfortability that goes with talking about yourself. So that's really why it takes at least 4 weeks of consistent meetings with them to really help them to trust you and trust themselves.
Right. So you said self-esteem is at the core of this. So what is self-esteem?
Wow, that's a question. That's that inner talk. You know what I'm saying? Because our brains are literal, right? So how you talk to yourself is how you think of yourself. And so even if you're not saying it out loud, it's those inner thoughts that you have that, build who you are on the inside and then manifest on the outside. So self-esteem to me is that talk. How are you speaking to yourself? What's the tone? What are the words that you're using? Because the brain is literal. The brain hears only what it is that you say and not the tone in which you say it or the fact that you might be joking about it. No, it interprets that and then that becomes you.
Yes, that's a great answer. So are there any kind of exercises or anything that people should do who lack self-esteem and are looking to improve themselves?
For sure. Um, you know, we as people, we go through life and we a lot of us don't document, right? And
Mhm.
so, when it comes down time to sit down and speak about what you've accomplished, you can't do it because you haven't ever taken the time to sit down and be like, well, what actually have I accomplished? Like, let me write that down. Let me go through that exercise. So one of the core things is just really taking, however you want to do it, paper, in your computer, but pour into that. Like, what have I done from the small to the large? Right? Because all of those things are things that myself as a coach, I'm going to take those things to help you say, look at what you did. Let's build on that. Let's expound upon that, when you're talking about yourself in this manner.
Yes, yes, definitely. Um, is there anything else that they need to do outside of writing and standing in the mirror? And is there like a ritual that they need to do, or how fast you saying 4 weeks on average to boost someone's self-esteem? And then my next question, part B to that, is people change like every 5 years or whatever. How how strong can they stand in their self-esteem once they've learned who they are? If you understand what I mean.
Yes. So let me work backwards, and please tell me if I don't answer the question
No
that you
problem.
initially asked, because um, we are always evolving,
Yeah.
right? But to know how to communicate and to know how to communicate about yourself is base, right? That's that foundation. That once you have that foundation, you can, no matter what you go on and do in life, as long as you can harken back and recognize that, no, I need to be able to talk about myself and what I bring to the table and how I bring it and how that's actually serving a pain point that you might have, right? This type of communication stems across an interview scenario, it stems across life, right? It's how you introduce yourself in a setting, it's how you can negotiate, a promotion. It's how you can, sell your service. To move forward in business. So communication is so core. So once you have that ability, the accomplishments and the achievements that you have, you just tack that on. You know what I mean? To the basic communication. And I
Yes.
think I forgot the first question that you asked, so I humbly apologize.
Oh no, you definitely answered it. I wanted to know, you mentioned about relationships with self-esteem. Does it help your overall being as far as how you communicate with your significant other or your roommate or teammate, co-worker? The self-esteem is at the core of everything. Is that correct?
Self-esteem is at the core of just how you present yourself, period, right? But it's also coupled with how you communicate that, right? If we talk about the proper handling of people, right,
Yeah,
it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. You
right.
know what I'm saying? And so when you learn yourself and you learn that communication is key for you to be outward, you also have to know in that process that communication is key inwardly, right? So how is somebody receiving what you're saying in
Right.
in all facets? So when we're in the legal field, right, we're taught about what you say and what the effect on the listener is. And so you have to really, aside from having your own self-esteem, you also have to think about what you're saying and what is the effect on the listener. How are they going to perceive this? How are they going to hear this? So you really have to think. We're taught to think 5 times before we even speak, because once it comes out of your mouth, you can't take back that impact,
Right.
you know?
Gosh, yes, you're so right. So when it comes to uh, learning yourself, does that automatically mean that you love yourself?
No.
Okay.
In my opinion, no, it doesn't.
Mhm, mhm,
In
mhm.
my opinion, that love comes from that's also a muscle that you have to develop as well, right? Because by the nature of life, things will beat you down. Depending on where you are in your stature in life, who you are, what you have gone through, those things take their toll.
Yes.
So, love is a muscle that we have to exercise. And how do we do that? Well, how do we care for ourselves? How do we talk to ourselves? What is our
Mm.
self-care, ritual that we honor to make sure that we are, putting our health as paramount? My mom always says, your health is your wealth.
Yes.
And, when especially as people get older, right? And you don't have youth on your side. you know
Right.
how you care for yourself is going to be that deciding factor,
Yeah.
really, um, in life. And even as a young person, right, they're dealing with so many pressures. They're dealing with fear of missing out. They're dealing with constant comparison to other people because they're on social media and they see what other people are doing and they think that they're not measuring up. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's really, loving yourself is really saying, look, I am me. I'm separate and apart from what I see outside of this chamber. And I got to deal with what's in this chamber and what's in this brain before I can even take in or be, allow myself to be impacted by what's going on outside of my chamber.
Yes. Yes. So when it comes to owning the room, um, that includes having self-esteem and being proud of who you are. Is there anything else? What are the ingredients when it comes to owning the room?
The ingredients, the way I like to break it down, are twofold. It is preparation and
Mm,
practice.
yes.
So when you prepare for something, right, that naturally takes away the anxiety, right? That naturally makes you more self-confident because you're not shrunk in yourself thinking, oh, let me field the question. I don't know what they're going to ask me. Well, no, when you're prepared, you've studied the job description, you know exactly, what they're looking for in a employee because they put it out there in their job description. And sometimes it might be that is the wish list, but you
Mhm.
definitely can, hit a large percentage of those things if you think about what you have accomplished in time thus far. So it is preparation, knowing the company, you know what I'm saying, knowing the industry, knowing the market, knowing some of the trends, knowing that company's core value system,
Yes.
and then that coupled with knowing yourself,
Mm,
right? Knowing what you bring to the table, knowing your strengths, knowing the weaknesses that you have that maybe you've worked on them and worked through them, or maybe you're currently still working on them, right? And then knowing then, once you have that, then you put that into practice. And then you start speaking about yourself. You
mm,
start speaking openly about these things that, are necessarily uncomfortable topics because we're taught really not to speak about yourself in such a manner. So it's preparation and practice that is really the formula that I like to tell people that will help you really own a room, even if it's not an interview space.
mm. Wow. That was powerful. You made me feel more powerful. I'm ready now. As an entrepreneur, having to attend so many networking opportunities and things like that, it's just great to know that self-esteem is there and, you're ready to own the room. That is amazing. What else is going on in your world, Kerrie?
Well, you know what? Right now, I am happy to be in production of a video course that is going to basically help me reach more people because it's going to be what I teach at a self pace
Right.
with, you being able to see me, but also being able to interact with, activities that are, helping to hone your skills at the same time. And I'm really excited about this project because I think that it will just help me reach so many more people, which is the whole goal, right? The whole goal is to bridge the gap. And so I'm excited that this project will actually allow me to be able to do that.
Wow. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. How was your journey from going to a regular check to owning yourself as an entrepreneur? How was that for you?
Yeah, so that has definitely not been the smoothest. It's a thing, to go from, being in a space where your check is steady, your healthcare is steady,
Right.
and your paid time off is
Right.
steady, and for a lot of it, your hours might be steady, right? So going to a space where none of that is true, it's been it's been fun. I love, iterating, and I love, getting feedback from clients and from, organizations that say, next time can we do it this way? Or I loved this, keep this. I love the feedback, and I love to be able to iterate. The other thing that I love about being an entrepreneur, and what has made it more smooth for my mental state is just
Okay.
my time. Is
Yeah.
owning your time. And when you have a family, that time is huge, right? Time is everything.
Yeah, it
um,
is.
and so that has been a wonderful transition. And then finally being able to figure out my own cadence, right? Because
Mm,
when you're working for someone else, right, they set your hours, they
yeah.
set, how many days off you can take, they set almost where you can go, they own your time.
Yeah.
How then, when you come out and become an entrepreneur, do you take that time back? Where do you feed yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like, what feeds your soul? And how do you maintain that so that you can maintain that balance?
Right.
That's been a fun challenge as well. So, I mean, like my mentor told me, do what you love and the money will come. So I'm not really concerned about, paychecks or payments as much as I'm concerned about creating a service that people enjoy and actually cause them to be successful in what it is that they're, looking to do, which is own a space, own an interview, command a room.
Wow. That is powerful. Wow. I really enjoyed this conversation. Kerrie, how can people find you?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm super on LinkedIn. I respond to basically all messages. So you can find me on LinkedIn under my name. And you can also find me at commandtheinterview.com.
Yeah.
But I respond to everything. So reach out to me, and I'm I love to help. So let me know if there's anything that I can help with.
Wow, I really enjoyed this conversation, and you're very clear and very easy to understand. And I can understand also how powerful you are because you are very commanding with your presence and your conversation. And I would love for you to come back in a couple of months so we could just catch up and see what's going on in Kerrie's world. Is that cool with you?
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Coach Stephanie. It's been such a pleasure. Like, this has been literally a great conversation, which is all that an interview should be. So thank you so much for having me and for your thoughtful questions. I really appreciate the time that you spent to try to get to know myself and my background.
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes, ma'am. Take care.
All right, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I definitely did. It's all about self esteem, especially as business owners or just anyone that's interested in owning themselves. That self esteem is so sincere. So make sure you go to commandtheinterview.com, and Mrs. Kerrie Muhammad will definitely make sure she takes care of you. I hope you all enjoyed this episode on Beyond Boardroom Business with your host, Coach Stephanie. And I look forward to seeing you or sharing with you my guest every Thursday night, Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. And until the next time, until the next episode, stay powerful, stay prayerful, and stay present. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. And until the next time, peace.